Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, today I actually have a build video for you. Today I'm going to be building up the Sabre Models 1/35th scale German Railway OMMR railway car. And I know it's a mouthful right there. I've been actually very excited about trying out one of the new Sabre model kits. I know they've been around for a little while, but they make a whole wide variety of different rail cars. And I'm going to use this one in the tank diorama. And this is the first build. Today's build will be this one. But then after that, I will also be building the G10 basically box car that we'll also be using in our diorama. This will be unloading products at the factory, and this will be taking away the Panzer Is once they get built up. So, like I said, I'm very excited. I haven't built one of these before, and I want to dive right into it. So, let's get started. Okay guys, let's take a look at the two rail cars that I'm going to build up. Each one of the Sabre model rail cars include the track and the railroad ties inside. So I plan on taking the track out of both of these and building two side-by-side rail heads that lead into the factory. And I'll show you in a few moments. I have the other sheet of plywood that I'm about to build the framework for and attach it to the factory, but I'll kind of just draw it out and let you see what I'm talking about. So we'll have the two side-by-side rail heads. The one further in the back will have the boxcar on it, and that'll be unloading supplies going into the factory. And in the foreground, a little bit further to the front, we will have a railhead with a like a cement ramp and landing on it, that the tanks will be able to drive up the ramp and then actually load onto the flatbed car there. And I'll build all that from scratch, but this video is going to be strictly about assembling the two rail cars. And if I'm not mistaken, they are very similar, obviously from the bottom down. They have the same type of platform. This one, obviously, we have to build the outer shell on it, and we're going to build the one here in the red, the one that has, which is normal, just a cargo one. So let me show you the piece of plywood, what I'm talking about, and then we'll start building. Okay, here is the 2x2 sheet of plywood. Over in this direction over here will be the actual factory, and running into the factory will be the two rail heads right here, the two side-by-side sets of track, and in the back area will be the warehouse with the boxcar sitting right up in through here. And then I'm thinking now I'm going to probably put the ramp right about here and then the platform down the middle of the track. That way it would make sense that you could load either track set of tracks with vehicles or unloading, things like that, and then have this front ground maybe like the wall for the rest of the factory, something like that on there. But that gives you a general idea. So the final diorama is going to be 2 feet by 4 feet, so it's going to be quite large. I am going to build the framework underneath. Down in through here we've got some nice wood to finish it all off, and it also brace everything too and put the two pieces together before I actually start building on this. But right now we're going to start working on the train tracks. Now we're going to get started on the underside of the first rail car, and I've cut out all of the pieces here to show you kind of the general way they're going to go on. I'm going to glue all these into place. We just have to do a little bit more sanding on them. Needless to say, there are a lot of little parts for the bottom part, but I think it's going to be very nice detail. I'll quickly just show you here too. This is kind of the layout, how the first 4 steps are going to go together. That you see those there. And that is what I'm going to put together right now. Jumping a little bit ahead, there is a lot of bracing on the bottom of this kit, but I've gone ahead and put all of that on there. Now I'm attaching the parts that will hold the wheels in place, the truck on the thing, and I've got one in place right here. I built one to see how it actually goes together, so I knew what I was doing before I started showing you guys. But before we do that other one, we have a center brace that'll get mounted right here in the middle, and then you have to build up 4 of these braces that'll get mounted just like this in here. And you can see that there'll be 4 of them going from each corner. And also we've got the brakes. And the brakes are made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 8 pieces right here. And they show you kind of like build them in place, but I was trying to get them to be built in place there. It was very, very difficult. So I think it's probably easier to build them flat like that, let them fully dry, and then I can go back later on and glue them in the place just like that. So you've got to build 4 sets of those as well. And the wheels themselves are pretty easy. They go together like this. There's the outer wheel. Very shiny plastic. I thought it may have been a different type of plastic other than polystyrene because it's super shiny compared to the rest of the kit, but regular Tamiya cement works on it. So there's an inner hub that you need to put in place, followed by the shaft that goes down the middle here, and then you just duplicate that on both sides of the wheel. And we also need to build up the set of leaf springs on here, which are just a couple of parts, and they get mounted in here. And then there's an outer hub that once you slide the wheel into place, the wheel kind of floats there, then that outer hub gets glued in, and that's what actually holds the whole wheel together. I now have most of the bottom of the flat car done. You can see there's quite a bit of bracing that has to be inside here. I started to attach the brakes on this, and I was starting to wonder if I should have them, since the actual car is supposed to be parked at a depot, that the brakes would be engaged. So they're not fully attached at this point. You can see I can actually adjust them later on, but I think they should be actually touching the actual wheels at that time, or the wheel of the truck, to make it look like it's actually locked in place at the depot. Now with that being done, I can go ahead and start attaching all of these side rails on there, and they'll easily actually go like that. Go right into place. They fit very, very well. That's been one nice thing about this. Everything on this, even though all this structure in there, it's all fit together really well. I've also assembled the bumpers, making sure that we have a flat side as well as a rounded over side, one on each. That is the way they should go. So when they bump into each other in real life, that's how it would work. We have all of our locks right here, or couplers, excuse me, not locks, couplers, and of course all of the steps to put on here. So the only other thing I have to do underneath here would be build the other 2 brakes up. We'll do that, and I'm going to attach these on here. Now I'm going to show you what the track looks like. And here are the track sections. We do have to sand them up. I have glued these 2 together, and once that is done like that, these actually slide very easily just right down the center of these parts. And the way that Sabre has designed these tracks, it's actually very, very simple to put together. And if you see these brakes in the track, if you actually click these together, you can actually make a curved piece of track. Now we don't need that because we have a nice straight piece that we need to work on, but you see that's how easy those track rails slide right on top of the railroad ties. I do have to sand all these up. I literally just cut them off the runner a little while ago, but you see right down the line how quickly that'll go. And the reason I'm putting this together real fast is I want to show you something else, and that is this. This is my concrete structure that I'm making out of foam here, and this is going to be the structure that you see. The far end has the ramp on it. This would be the piece that the tanks or vehicles or anything else they did would drive up that ramp. And hopefully, if I've done this correctly, we put that car right on there. You can see that I've cut it so it'll be like in real life just a couple inches that the vehicle will be able to drive right onto the rail tracks there. So I've got a lot of work to do on this, but I was waiting for glue to dry on here and decided I would start cutting this up using the foam cutter. And also too, since I've got this flipped over here, there is a slight little seam where you join the 2 halves of the rail car together. We ran a little putty down the center of that and cleaned off the excess, and once you paint over that, you won't even be able to see that anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of that rail car. And here we are. Here is the built up model with all of the little accessories on. We have all the little side bumpers on there, plus all of the little tie down rings on both sides of it, plus all the hooks, things like that. I've gone ahead and completed the brakes all of those other parts on there and put everything into place. There's just a couple of tiny little pieces I'm going to put on last after we do the painting because I just think they'd pop off too easily. But you can see it here sitting on top of the track. The kit fits together very, very well. You can see here too, when resting on the track, all four wheels hit the track perfectly, so we don't have any warpage or anything. So very, very nice kit. Very, very impressed with the way Sabre has put this together, and lots of detail on it. So now I am going to go ahead and first we're going to paint the rail car, and then we'll paint the tracks up separately. I have the rail car flipped over on its back on some white paper to catch any of the overspray. And I'm going to spray the entire bottom of the rail car with Tamiya's German gray, making sure not to miss any of the lighter gray areas so they don't show up later. We'll flip the rail car back over, and I've masked off the edges here, and I'm spraying with Tamiya's XF59 Desert Yellow. We want to put one even coat across all of the boards to start. And now that that has dried, taking our masking tape, I've isolated a few boards and using the 59 XF59 as well as a little buff 50-50 mix, I'm going ahead and lightening a few of the boards on here. We want to add a little contrast to the upper deck, remembering that we are going to put washes over all this to blend it together. Now that those are done, remove the masking tape and have put some new masking tape on, and we're going to darken up a few boards. And I've added just a touch of German gray to that same desert yellow, and we're just going over here and darkening up a few of the boards. And using that same mixture, I want to put a little bit of staining randomly on the deck. And this is kind of just wherever you feel like it. Now the fun part, removing the masking tape carefully, not to remove any of the paint that we've put down. Now that the masking tape is up, I'm going to spray the entire thing with TS80 lacquer flat coat. That will protect our paint job. And I'm sorry that the camera was focusing more on my hand than on the subject, but right now I am taking some washes. In this case, Tamiya's brown panel liner. I'm using Ammo by Mig's Streaking Grime, Ammo by Mig's Dark Streaking Grime, as well as just a touch of their dark rust color. And I'm going to start off with each one of the colors and gradually blend them into the top deck. Here is the reddish rust color going on. Now that that is done, I'm taking a little piece of torn off foam sponge and just lightly, very, very lightly, dragging it across the surface. And this blends it together to give us a nice wood grain effect. Once that is done, you can see here a little bit closer up what I was talking about with the wood grain showing up. I'm using some black Tamiya panel liner now, and just around the edges where we want to dirty up some of the edges of the board. It also gives it a little bit of definition between the individual boards once it dries. And you'll notice there is a little bit on the ledge of the rail car from using the sponge. You go back later on with a cotton swab and we'll be able to wipe off the excess on that. Not too much of it though, because actually it builds up nicely as a nice little grime effect on the edge of the rail car. But this close-up gives you an idea. Remembering this is not completely dry yet, so we can blend and blend and blend as much as we want to get to the desired effect of the wood grain. And here is half of the rail car with the wash on it to give it the effect of a weathered, worn wood. As you can see, the before and after, it looks quite a stark difference. Now that the side here is almost dry, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the other side. Make them. As you can see here, I've painted the railroad ties a red-brown, kind of a darker color here. And I'm also taking a dark iron and spraying all of the actual rails themselves. Plus, I've masked off the railroad ties, and we're spraying all of the fittings, the parts that hold the railroad ties and the rail together. And we want to get those all into like a nice dark iron, and then we'll start weathering around that. Now I'm just taking some dark streaking grime, starting off with over the dark brown paint, and just starting to put some different layers. This is going to be going just like we did with the flatbed car, but just using darker colors to start and finish with there. And we want this to be a little bit darker than that, even more so. So we're going to use a little black panel liner in some of these real rough areas of wood. Put a little bit of that in there. Let that soak for just a little bit of time. And then we can go back and blend it a little bit more with some enamel thinner and some other colors on it there. And then we will worry about weathering the iron area, remembering too that this little area in here that we painted is all getting covered by ballast, so that's why we weren't too worried about getting paint on that. So let me go ahead and keep blending these together, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like once it dries. Here is the top of the German railway flatbed car. I've let the washes completely dry. Once that happened overnight, I sprayed the entire surface of it with a TS80, which is, to me, is flat clear. That is sealing in our paint job. You'll also notice too on the sides here, on both sides actually, I've gone ahead and put all of the decals into place, which was just a grand total of 4 decals on either side. And I've also painted in through here the little chrome, shiny silver color where the plunger part of the bumpers is. Now I'll take some metallic pigment powder. In this case, I've got an old bottle of S&J, and basically just the smallest amount, what little remnant would be on the top of the inside of the lid. Putting a little bit on a brush. I'll zoom in here, and we're just going to lightly just start hitting some of the edges. And what it does is it creates a nice light effect, but it also makes all the detail start to stick out. And that'll be true on any of these tow hooks, these bumpers, and then even slightly down the edge of the rail car itself. Just like that. And then, of course, I will need to put a little bit of it under here to highlight some of the detail in these areas. But we'll do all of that off camera because you get a general idea. It's a lot easier doing it without the camera in the way. Move the rail car over to the side for a minute, and here is our track using the same type of metallic pigment powder. This time I'm just using my finger dipped in it and going across the top of the rail. We want to create the look that it's worn and it has a, the metallic finish to it. Just like that. I'll do that whole top there. I'm not going to do any more weathering on the actual track itself because I need to attach it to the base and then attach all of the ballast around it. And once you do that, then I'll do all the weathering to blend all of it together. But this will give you a pretty good idea how the rail car is coming along. And here you are. Here is the completed model. I have to say I am very impressed with Sabre's quality. This was a very nice kit to go together, fit very well. There was a few more parts than I actually thought there would be, and that's not a negative thing in any way. Just looking at the box art, I thought, this will go together in no time at all. But as you saw during the build, there was quite a bit of detail on the bottom of the rail car, and I think it really shows off when you look at it. Plus the tracks are very, very nice too. Now remember what I said earlier, that I still have to do a tiny bit more weathering once the tracks get laid down, and that's after we put the ballast in place, and you want to blend all of that together. But this gives you a general idea how Sabre's rail car goes together, and I, like I said, very, very impressed with it. What I'm going to do right now is I've got an old Panzer IV here that I will put it on to give you guys a general size of how big it is. Most of you know how a Panzer IV is, and let you see what it is. This would probably be the max that this car in real life would be able to carry. The Panzer IV is, I guess it's about 24 tons, so that's probably the limit that you'd want to put on a single truck rail car. Now, they also make, Sabre now I'm talking about, makes a double truck rail car, which could carry up to like the Panther, and then they also make a 3 truck rail car, which could carry all the way up to like the Jag Tiger. So it's a real super heavy one. Sabre has all 3 of those available. Very nicely done. Now, keep in mind, in the next video, I'm going to build up the German Railway covered G10 wagon, which is the box car, basically. And I'm also going to show you more of the construction on the railhead and how you'd get the vehicles onto these rail cars and how it's going to fit into place with the giant tank diorama that I'm working on. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you as always for watching, and please stay tuned because I have many more videos coming.